Not quite yet, just 1 second.
Mhm.
Okay, all set.
Thank you, Barb.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting into order. The first item in our agenda is a check-in. We usually go around and had folks introduce ourselves. We did this for the first few meetings because we still had folks joining us. This week in particular has been extremely challenging, I think, as a human being, but also as an educator, as someone that attends, that goes to school in any capacity, whether as a student or staff or employee, any parent, any guardian, anyone that lives by a school. I think this week has impacted all of us in different ways, and we wanted to give folks an opportunity to just take a moment to reflect and bring yourselves to the space. I think, given that the charge of this group includes the word safety for students, feels even more relevant or even more pertinent for us to take this moment and just go around and check in however way is coming for you. And I can model what is for me. There was I had an opportunity to sleep in a little bit yesterday. I had an opportunity to just take a moment and also to offer space for others. I had an opportunity to hold my own baby, because during these times I have felt that felt really important, to just hold her and just feel her presence and know that she's right here. And today I had an opportunity to hold learning spaces for many educators. And in every learning space, there was a moment of pause and reflection and invitation for folks to also connect to what was happening to their minds, what's happening to their bodies, and what's happening to their hearts around this week in particular, and the recent events that have been culminating today. So with that, I want to check in to see who would be ready to go next. And I'll turn my mic on, and if someone can just follow that and then pass it to somebody else, that'll be great.
Sure,
I'll
I can
turn my mic
share.
off.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ruben Sinon. I'm from the mayor's office. I think it kind of just feels unreal. I don't really know how I'm processing it quite yet. It doesn't feel, I don't understand. It just feels unknowable how something like that can happen and how someone can do that. Such an innocent space, and it takes away innocence from everybody who knows that it happened, and yeah, like I said, I just don't I don't understand it. So I don't know. I'm sure I'll be processing it over the next few days and weeks, and I'm kind of a slow emotional processor, I think, generally, and something this big is hard to get your mind and your hands around. So I think that's where I'm at. But I'm here to be supportive of anybody who does know where they are and does need to speak about it. And I don't want to put anybody on the hot seat if they're not ready. So I'll just leave it there.
I can go next. So hi guys, my name is Joanna Hoskins. I am a student at La Follette High School, And I'm actually pretty concerned and scared of what the future has to hold, especially with another tragedy happening like this yet again in such a short span of time, like to other tragedies. So it's just very concerning seeing how our legislators are handling this and how some people are not going to try to change anything to prevent future tragedies from happening. And just seeing how a lot of families have lost their children and loved ones, it's very heartbreaking seeing that.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Mia. I'm a student at Memorial High School. And over the week, since the shooting has happened at elementary school in Texas, in class we've been talking about it a little bit in my English class and in my history class. And personally, I think it's really heartbreaking and a little bit scary, honestly, because as someone who goes to school, you know, you never know what could happen now. And I think that's something that shouldn't be present in schools because, like, school should be a safe place where kids go to learn. School shouldn't be a place where we go to die, right? So I don't know. It's just a lot to process, and it's hard seeing everyone going through all these emotions and like just feeling emotions myself, and yeah.
I can go next. I'm Megan. I'm a student at West, and I think these past couple days I've really had to take a moment, actually several, and kind of reassess the world around me when I'm at school, and just kind of be grateful that like I'm still here and like some other kids aren't, and that should never be a problem, but it is. So I'm a little angry about that, but I think I'm also incredibly grateful to be in a community, and to have like friends that are safe. But it also kind of like begs the question, like, is this something that could happen? And I think the answer is yeah.
I can go. So it's been like really hard processing this and the fact that stuff like this keeps happening. And it just like makes me feel like school's not as safe as I thought it was or thought it should be, right? And that's a problem. And I am upset that stuff like this keeps happening. Lives are being taken continuously, and there's no action being done. So I'm really upset. It's been a lot this week, and kind of just like stuff that's been going on with Memorial too. It's just a lot, and it's really scary and upsetting, and I am kind of just mad in general.
I can go next. My name's Cece. I'm a student at Memorial, and I agree. Just like with all the threats that Memorial has gotten, and then what happened in Texas, it's like made me not realize, but like fully take in that the threats that we get, they could be real and they could happen. And there is something that students could do, but not make as big of a difference as like politicians could do if they would like vote to do something bigger. But right now they're doing nothing, and that's just like really angering and upsetting. Yeah.
I can go next. My name is Mari. I'm the parent of two Memorial students, and I was really struck last week before this happened. One day when I dropped my kids at school, they got out of the car and then left the car door open and just walked off. And I got really frustrated and annoyed, and I had to get out and walk around and shut the door, and was sort of frustrated with, teenage brains and such. But then, when this happened on Tuesday, I thought, like, those people dropped their kids off and never saw them again. So I think we all, need to appreciate, it shouldn't be like this, but we all need to appreciate those moments so we can connect with our kids and make more of them.
I can go. So I've been in a variety of different meetings and settings with people from across the state this week, and obviously this has been a topic that has come through there, and some people much smarter and wiser than me, had some different comments. But first and foremost, I want all the students and everybody to know, this shouldn't be, and we shouldn't accept that this happens all too often. And we shouldn't accept that this somehow it seems normal, and never let it be normal. And my piece is, I'm just mad because, what is it gonna take? When are the politicians gonna just do their job? And I think that's the frustrating thing is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna take. And it's just frustrating. This should not happen. This shouldn't keep happening. And parents shouldn't have to wonder if that's the last time they're going to see their kids when they drop it off. And you students shouldn't wonder, am I safe? There's a lot of other things for you to be concentrating on, and being kids and learning and growing. And so it's just frustrating. And I hope this is the one that wakes us up as a country, as a group, to do something different than we've done. I really hope that, but I'm just mad.
I'm Dr. Hicks, and I am feeling a tremendous amount of emotions, good, bad, indifferent, angry, all at the same time. Because not only was this shooting and all of those, the babies who which we do all of these things in life for, but then the previous weeks ago, it was in Buffalo. And so, and then we hear about it, and then what actually comes of that, or what are our responses to that, and how are we like really standing up to say this is not okay, and we have to change how we view policies, laws, all of those things. Because at the end of the day, even if you do have laws, I do understand people will break them because people have choices. But if things are in place appropriately in the first place, and we're not continually fighting against something that's going to help everybody, and not just for people who want to make money or all of those things. And so I'm just, a lot of parts of me are very numb. And the biggest thing is I want out of this for actually young people to understand so they can do things differently than what's happening right now, right? And that we don't continue to normalize this, because the more we see it, the more we just will turn to the next channel. And I don't think we need to turn to a next channel. We need to turn the volume up on this and do something different.
Hey, it is Sabrina Madison, and I am in my car. So can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So along with Dr. Hicks, I I don't really know how I feel right now. I think the biggest thing is I feel disappointment in our legislators, disappointment in leadership, those sort of things. So I don't
Sabrina,
think
I'm
that
sorry, we're losing you.
ever
You're
at a point
cutting
where I was
out.
angry. I'm more disappointed and sad. And so, but what I will say is, at least for me personally, I grew up in a very violent community. All right. Let's see. Can you hear?
We could hear you really clear for the first part, and then it just got really choppy.
All right. Is it still choppy?
It's better now.
All right. So the only thing I'll add is really just growing up in a community where there was violence and there's constant violence. We actually live in, we all know that violence is happening. Shooting.
Sorry, Sabrina, we lost you.
Hey Sabrina, if you can get to a location where you can stop, that'd be great.
So there are cities such as Chicago, such as Milwaukee, such as Detroit, where little ones at once, but they're okay.
Sorry, Sabrina. Who'd like to go next? Just turn your mic on.
I can go. I'm Jessica Hodds. I teach at East High School. My first year teaching full time is when Columbine happened, and it hasn't changed. I am heartbroken and ticked off and frustrated. When trying to talk to my students about it, one class didn't even blink because they hadn't even paid attention, and that killed me. I feel like I don't matter, my students don't matter. It's not just this contributing to that, but that's it. I mean, we have been talking on a school level about things that could make us safer here. We've been largely ignored. I mean, I know the day after Sandy Hook happened, I had some former students come and visit me, and there was nothing that stopped them from coming in the building, and they noticed that. And that, that was probably an issue. I mean, we might be better than that now, but I'm not sure. I don't feel like we're being listened to on a district level and on a world, nationwide level. I will say that I am grateful to those colleagues of mine that have stuck around in this district because we back each other up. But who knows how long they will stay, given everything going on. So I'm heartbroken and ticked off and really frustrated.
I'll go. I'm Mike. So I'm not currently in a school building, but I visit a lot. I hear from people all across the district, and it's just been tough because it's coming in from all sides. When you hear from a colleague who teaches Phi-Ed at one of the high schools, and they're like, I have 21 doors in my classroom. And you hear the politicians just say, well, if we only just have one door, just such a dissonance and the idea of like, well, we'll just give teachers guns, even though we don't trust them with books, or to be able to just talk about certain subjects. I think there's just like such an anger. And then there's also just understanding, it's even if you legislate it, that's only part of the sickness. This is a public health crisis. This is a health issue. This is I had two former students who were in the news for murder, for gun violence, or using guns to take the lives of others. We have students who come, and it just triggered all these emotions of like, students who came to school the next day because after their parents were murdered, from gun violence. And, every year, I can't think of a year that I've worked in this district where I didn't have or worked with a student who, either had a family member who died from gun violence, or, had a family or knew someone in the community, or also in the community where they used a gun. And it's something that I've given up on the politicians, to be perfectly honest, because they're just bought and paid for. And I'm just kind of more focused on what can we do in buildings to just have these conversations, to talk about just like our culture and our sickness as a community regarding it. I'm also just trying to balance it with hope. I was at an elementary school. I brought my therapy dog to a local elementary school, and the kindergartners began taking out books and began reading to the dog without even prompting, because they wanted to show the dog how good of a reader they are. And, just try to remember to balance those sort of things. Today, I spent time, Dr. Hicks knows this, today I spent time working with a Black student leadership group. It was all boys because the girls were at Black Girl Magic. There is, which, from what the pictures showed, was a really good time. And we had a really good time with the young men, and they were 4th and 5th graders. And, just try to remember that there is a lot of hope and a lot of good in this community. But I also think about them in the form of like, I just hope we can wrap our arms around them, and they can wrap their arms around us before they get to the point where they're in the news. And I can't disconnect that. And it breaks my heart, but my heart's already broken when it comes to gun violence. So it'll just remain to be broken. It kind of flows in with Buffalo. I'm Vietnamese, so I think about also the shootings again, and the targeted shootings against the Asian American community that have happened also. I just think about, every time a school shooting happens, it just runs in my head again. Okay, if I'm in this space, this is how I can protect my kids. This is how I block the bullets here. And I'm just like, how did this become part of the training? And it's just, I think the students said it best. It's tough to focus on anything else except your own safety, and that's a reality. And that was a reality before Uvalde. That was a reality before Buffalo, because that's why we're here, right? It's because people are just generally not feeling safe for a myriad of reasons. And how can we come together and have more moments of love and support?
I know I've already spoken, but I just want to also let people know that there's a Wear Orange Day and a rally against gun violence coming up on June 3rd. It's going to be starting at 6 o'clock, June 3rd at the Villager parking lot, and then going to Penn Park in recognition of all the gun violence that we've seen in our own community and seen around the country and the world, So I can share that link with Ananda after our meeting as well.
Share with Barb, Ruben, please. Thanks.
Councilor Renata, can you repeat that?
Gordon?
So June 3rd will be Wear Orange Day, which is a recognition of gun violence, and there'll be a rally / walk from Villager parking lot on the south side to Penn Park on the south side, from 6 to about 8 o'clock. And you'll get the link probably from Barb in a little bit.
Thank you.
And for Gordon and for others that may have come late, we were just doing a check-in, reflecting on recent events. We haven't heard from Liz, Maddie, Maya, and you, Gordon. And Sabrina, if you are in a place where we can, that the internet's a little bit more stable, love to hear from you too.
Can you hear me okay, clear here?
Yes.
Oop. All right. Me?
No, I'm sorry. Now you froze. Anybody else would like to go next?
Ananda, I can just real quick chime in. I don't know if it's Andre or Ruben or whoever says that they were now. I am as well. And I just wanted to share an observation that I had this morning. I was at Frank Alice Elementary School with a reporter watching Lafayette students walk through their former elementary school and reconnect with teachers. And it just struck me, you hear like this, 7 degrees of separation term. And this particular reporter, well, her alma mater was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and she actually had been down there to cover the school shooting when that happened. She also has very close connections to the Pulse nightclub. I think that's in Orlando, and also was like just in Las Vegas at the music fest before that tragic shooting happened. And so my reflection since that time has just been like how prevalent, unfortunately, this has become, where you can actually speak to one person who has connections to 3 mass shootings. It's really sad.
So what I just have to say in regards to like the recent events, we all know we need, drastic changes to our gun laws, all across the country. And it's just, I just want the people who we elect to actually follow through on that, because this has been a debate for I don't know how many years, right? And we see, time after time that the lack of gun reform, the lack of mental health support, like the lack of a lot of things can lead to devastating events. And it just that what is going to be done? And we ask ourselves these questions, pretty much every year since the first event happened, many years ago, was Sandy Hook. And it's just like, when are we going to actually do something about it, And I don't see what's the big holdup. So yeah, that's that. And I do have to say, regarding to like the incident that happened at La Follette, students and a lot of families were kept on the code about that. And, that was a very serious moment there. And I believe communication should have been handled a lot better for that event. And I just have to say, I know I saw some things on Twitter about like army teachers. Like, teachers don't become teachers to do the job that you know what I mean? Like, that's something that should be handled by those, and law enforcement that should also be covered, like, with gun reform laws, etc. I don't think the debate should be army teachers. It should be whether or not we actually get stricter when it comes to the possession of guns and the like. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And I just hope that going in the future that we start to see some changes. I know East has a March for Our Lives chapter, and they haven't, like, earlier this year they had done like rallying around, gun control laws and etc. And we those rallies, I mean, there are a lot of them across the nation, and it's just that I just think that we all still feel ignored about it. I mean, we are ignored. We still don't see any progress with it. So I just think that needs to be handled, at a national level. But I think for our own district, we need to do more in terms of communication when these incidents happen, and we need to look into what can we do to prevent those firearms entering our schools. I think that's a big question that we need to start asking ourselves.
Maddie, Sabrina, and Maya, I want to give you all an opportunity if you to share, to do a check-in. I'll wait a little bit, and if I don't hear from you, I'll move into the agenda.
No, I passed. Thank you.
I'll try one more time. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! And I won't be long, literally, because I'm grocery shopping. But I really just was going to say that I feel mostly just disappointment, not like I was sad, I was angry, but today I'm just disappointed still in leadership and elected folks. But I do want to say like sometimes we feel like helpless, that we can't do anything or whatever. There's not anything we can do to change the situation. But I do want to say, because we're dealing with violence on a daily basis, on a regular basis, there are shootings that are happening in our communities on a regular basis all the time. One, we could do very, very simple and small things, whether it be sharing mental health resources on our social media, whether it be doing like you're doing today, which is taking part in a committee that addresses safety and wellness, and then advocating where you can around social and emotional support. So I do just want to just say everybody can do, just even again, it can simply be, hey, here's a link to local mental health resources, because there are folks who you're friends with or who are in your network who are struggling, who untreated will become sometimes their untreated needs turn into like these larger issues, such as gun violence. So we are all participating. We're all being part of a solution. So even if you do feel helpless, just know you're being part of a solution and don't allow that to drain you. So that's my piece. I'm gonna get back to listening and walking around the store.
Thanks, Sabrina. Maddie, I want to give you an opportunity as well.
Is Maddie here? I don't think Maddie's in the room.
She was, oh, maybe she got dropped. I wrote it down that she was at some point. Okay, thank you, Ruben. Well, thank you, everyone, for this important moment of pause and reflection. And I believe that those check-ins humanize us and humanizes our stories. And I think the next item around communications updates can have this twofold. Right now there's an attachment for what had come through the Let's Talk until May 18th. Those are the updates that had come through until last week. I'm really curious if we're going to hear more things around guns, in particular guns in schools. Thank you. Barb is going to demonstrate one more time what that document looks like, or where to find that document in board docs. And there's an 8-page PDF with a different comments that have come through. I'm curious, folks that have already reviewed that document, if there's anything that you would like to lift up that has showed up on that. And then we'll move into talking a little bit more about communications in general. Anything from the document?
I see a lot of people asking if this committee will also cover like middle school and elementary schools. And I was also going to ask that too, like if this committee, I think it should be for every single school in MMSD, like all the whole district, but I was just wondering like what our focus for that was.
Yeah, I think it's a co-creation, Mia. We did talk at some point to making sure that we include middle school and elementary. And I think right now it's in everybody's mind to make sure that we are adding a comprehensive approach. We don't have like a person necessarily like that is elementary or middle school focus, with exception of Dr. Hicks. So we don't have a school building person. That's what I meant to say, a school building educator. But that's, I think, an important point for Mari and Maddie. They're going to be working with parents to make sure that we include middle school and elementary school parents. For Jessica and Michael, that will be working with educators to make sure some educators at the elementary and middle school level. Yeah, Mari.
I just wanted to say that when Maddie and I talked yesterday, we discussed strategies about reaching parents at every single school, including and especially elementary and middle. So that's definitely on our agenda to go through either the school psychologists and or the PTOs from schools at all levels. So I think that's super important, because that's where some of these issues really start. Safety and wellness starts in kindergarten, or 4K even now. So we're definitely going to seek parent input at all levels of schools.
Thank you so much, Mari. And Ruben?
Yeah, one thing I noticed is that safety and wellness is being defined, I guess, broader than I originally realized. So some of the stuff that we were getting seems maybe it is for us, and I just didn't realize that, or maybe the school board, they wanted to communicate with them. So I'm not sure if we're going to be forwarding on messages to the school board, or if we need to kind of define what safety and wellness means in this committee. I think it might be helpful.
Yeah, Ruben, thank you so much. Yeah, and there is a wellness committee. We had received already, I've been in communication with some folks in a wellness community committee and there's some folks that are doing advocacy on a wellness committee that they would like to have some conversations. And we have also things that are this extreme, that's informing this extreme conversation that we're having right now. Somebody said to me earlier, or brought it up, the less spectacular violence that happens every day. So there's all of that, but I think that's a good point for discussion. Board member Maya and Gordon.
Yeah, ultimately, what will come, I guess the way that it's envisioned is ultimately what comes from this committee will be recommendations that will go to the board. And so you guys are kind of making the groundwork of what possibly, we may vote on in the future and have discussions about. I do know that part of the conversation, and Nanda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the conversation that we were having when this was becoming, as we were starting or envisioning it, was that really it's how do we ensure safety and mental health within all of our schools. So hitting on elementary, hitting on our high schools and middle schools. So it's not just only high schoolers, because we understand this is something that affects at all levels, whether it is scholars that are in 4K or, you know, seniors graduating, or if it's teachers or support staff or families, parents, like it's everywhere. So yeah, so really it's just recommendations that will come to us, and then we will make decisions based off of what this ad hoc, I guess, recommends.
I see from a parent, well, let's say their children went to medicine schools, but anyway, so there's a parent who would like to be on the like to be in this committee. So I think maybe we could probably add them to like the family and you know, the family engagement group, stakeholder group. We also see here in their response, they mentioned an incident where some teachers were afraid to intervene within a fight instead of because they feel like they was going to get hurt within themselves. They also talked about, you know, some opportunity gaps, and more so about like things that have happened in the past that has been brought to me but hasn't been, you know, done much with. So I think like we should probably like really take a look at that, because, you know, there may be some teachers out there who may not want to intervene where something happens behavior wise within their classrooms or in the hallways. And I believe that's really the job of BRT anyway. I don't know the whole thing on that. So making sure like we address that in some capacity. And also, I don't know if you want to talk about the opportunity gap, because I know that is part of, I mean, you can argue that is part of wellness, like not everyone may not have opportunities as the next individual in terms of equity. So that may cause them to experience certain struggles. I mean, it may cause them to act out in certain instances. But definitely we need to just talk about how does BRT play a role in intervening with like fights or any other types of behavioral incidents.
Gordon, I wanted to clarify, BRT is bilingual resource teachers.
I mean, like the behavioral response team.
Sorry. The behavioral response team. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No. That's all right. Yes, there's a lot of acronyms. Yeah, I do wanted to bring that up. I actually, you know, in this conversation around communication, I think this group can inform the board or can send communication to the board, because we have already talked about communication, and that's just coming up again around how do we want the communication to be for the next, you know, communication with students this, you know, this coming week, next week, you know, this at least, you know, this end of the school year, because of the high intensity of you know, emotions and worries that students and educators are experiencing. And you know, there was an example, Gordon, that you brought up of a gun at La Follette and the students not knowing what was happening. And I remember when my daughter was at La Follette, like I would know, like people would know from their students texting them what was going on, and the students would not know anything. And then us having to post on social media, and then people like parents on social, like learning things from social media. Anyway, a dysfunctional way of learning the physical well-being of our children, while our children also are not sure what's happening or what's happening in their learning environment. Michael, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just, you know, as someone who is a behavior responder at both middle and high schools, and actually has had experience in terms of intervening for weapons, I think sometimes there also needs to be some education on what can be communicated, what can't be, but then also developing better systems in terms of communicating also to the staff in a building, because often, usually when there are things and students are hearing it and then they're contacting their parents, usually the second person they're talking to is an adult that they trust in the building. That could be the classroom teacher, an EA, school security, secretaries. Like, you know, there's no, you know, and usually if that staff doesn't have the information or even just the basics, not even going into like, because you want to protect the privacy and what is going on with the student that might or might not have had the weapon or whatever was going on, because they have their rights too. Just making sure that there is some sort of coherent conversation, because that's when sometimes rumors or things kind of get not blown out of proportion, but like sometimes like some of the facts get omitted and things like that. So that's why what I'd like to do is also propose that as we're talking about bringing in middle school, elementary teachers or classroom staff, that we're also talking about student services and behavior responders who are in that space, security, SSAs, who I think are, kind of tasked, especially at the high school level, as the SROs have been removed in terms of, intervention and actually having conversations around what training looks like for all staff in those cases, because I think sometimes there's misconceptions of what can be discussed, what can't be discussed, who can discuss what, because we're trying to make sure we're protecting the privacy and the rights of everyone involved, and making sure that because sometimes the kid doesn't have a weapon, and then all of a sudden now there's a rumor going around that the kid had a weapon, and that's unfair to the kid, that's unfair to the kid's family. So sometimes it's a balance of accuracy and also respect for everyone's privacy in those really, really difficult situations.
Thank you, Michael. We're going to come back to this conversation, I'm sure. But I do wanted to hear also from students as well. But no, Jessica, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot to mirror what Mike was said. One of the things that has been most frustrating, and I know there's a lot of privacy stuff, is teachers are usually the last to know. And considering we're getting students coming in our classrooms that are ramped up, we can't look out for that. We can't look out for the signs of, destabilization and so forth if we don't know something happened. And yes, we do not need to know every detail. It's something that I've worked with a lot of different administrators over the years, and only one had a really good, pattern of doing it. And well, that was Milton Pike actually, but it puts us in danger. It puts the kids in the classrooms in danger, because we can't look out for them as much if we don't know that something has escalated someplace else.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to pass this question to the students. Do you all
Ananda, looks like Johanna's had her hand up.
Oh, Joanna, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Oh, thank you. So as a student of Follett, I want to talk about the incident that just occurred, I believe was on Friday. So someone brought a weapon into school, and once again, teachers were not notified when it happened or any time near the time that had happened. Instead, they're notified the same time that parents were notified, which was after school, about like 5 hours or more after the incident. The first time that someone brought it in a gun at La Follette, they weren't notified until after school as well. No one was notified about these incidents, even though the administration team had no way before. I feel like as a student, it really makes us all feel unsafe, knowing that teachers don't even know when students have guns inside of our school, especially with recent events that have happened. It's just like, well, teachers are supposed to be here to like help protect us. Like, we need to be protected. Our parents need to know what's going on. Yet this administration is not telling us anything. There's no transparency at La Follette. Like the first time that happened, they apologized saying that, oh, this and that, like making excuses. But then this time there was no excuse because it happened in the morning. It doesn't take 5 hours to send out an email to teachers, hey, someone has a weapon in our school. It's just very concerning just seeing how poor the communication is at our school regarding dangerous weapons that could potentially kill or harm multiple students. And now I feel like, honestly, in my opinion, I just feel like the lack of communication just goes to show other students who may like want to harm students, unfortunately, just goes to show how easy it is to bring a gun into La Follette and for there not to be any communication within the teachers. It's just very aggravating knowing that our administration at La Follette really does not care about communicating to teachers until after school.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanna. And I had lots of those conversations with my daughter, both when she attended at La Follette and at East. And she confirmed that a lot of students bring guns to school all the time. And I think there's a myth that we want to believe that that's not happening. I think in particular when that gun or the firearm gets to that place of it's about to become a life risk to students or to staff, that folks need to know, right, that this is happening. This is their workplace, and this is also their place of learning. So folks need to know. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
I'm so
We're
sorry.
gonna come back to you. No. We're gonna come back to you too. So just keep going. Keep that hand.
I just want to say one of the things that just factors in, because I've been at that situation in terms of the district or the building communication to staff, is sometimes we're limited, or building administrators or building behavior responders are limited by like district leadership on what they can communicate. And then they are told what they have to say and what they can't. So sometimes, and this is not in defense of La Follette's building administrators, but I just know from the process that's happened and in multiple administrations, this isn't just Dr. Jenkins, that, when an incident like that happens, the principal is actually instructed by the chief of schools and by the superintendent and by the communications office to not say anything until they write it up and then they send it out. And so even if it has the principal's name on it, it is written by someone else to communicate what's going on, and done so in a way that reduces liability of what is said or what isn't said, which obviously leads to, as Ms. Hoskins points out, like super frustrating situations where everyone's getting the information. Sometimes it's incomplete or sometimes it's unsatisfactory, but that's just something I want to lift up, just because I think often sometimes because the name of the administrator is on that communication, we assume the administrator was the one who wrote it. And that's because of the way this district operates, doesn't happen a lot of times, especially when it's highly escalated situations. Sometimes it involves a gun, sometimes it's about something, something happens in the news or something that happens in the community. So I just wanted to lift that up, as that's an intentional part of the district process. So if this committee wants to look at that or have a discussion around how we communicate and, provide that as guidance to the board to say, hey, we need better communication strategies that do that. I just want to lift that up, because I think sometimes a lot of people in our community, staff, students, parents, even administrators don't know that's part of the process. And I've also seen administrators get in trouble for communicating to parents before district administration okayed it. And so, that's just, I just want to lift that up as a problem of practice.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Joanna, is your hand a new hand or is it an old hand?
Oh yeah, I just want to add one thing. I'm sorry. So I see where you're coming from and everything. It's just I forgot to add on that when the incident happened, when someone had a weapon inside of our school, we did not go on lockdown. There was no formal lockdown, so everybody was just walking around at school while someone had a weapon. So it's just like, I don't know, we definitely need to change that with the no lockdowns or anything like that.
And Joanna and Dr. Hicks, I see your hand, but I've been waiting to ask exactly that question to our students. How many of you understand the lockdown and lock in? Megan, I see your hand.
There's a lockdown and a lockout.
Lockdown, lock out, yeah.
Yep, and then there's a hold, yeah.
And then a hold. Does all the students understand? Okay. And Mia, you wanted to speak to that?
Yeah, so actually I wanted to bring up something about that. So in every single classroom that I know of, there's a little clipboard like by the door, and it has all the procedures. It has like I don't know, tornado, lock down, lock out. But what I find really confusing is that lock down and lock out both have lock in the name. And I know that one time at Memorial, the police had us go on a lockdown instead of a lockout because something got mixed up and it should have been a lockout. And I really think that the name should be changed so that it's locked down and shut out or something along those lines. Because we can't have confusion in these times of like desperate need and stuff. So that's what I think on that, and I think that should change. But yeah.
Yeah, Mia, I was like, I remember that incident, which is like, what? Like in the moment of crisis, we were getting stuck with the terminology. Yeah, thank you. And then Dr. Hicks.
Yeah, so excuse me. I was going to just add, it's also about communication, to not wanting to one, making sure that the message that is being sent is clear and understood. The other is also that when the situation is immediately under control, right? We want to make sure that one, everybody's safe, because I want everybody to know that priority is to ensure that everyone is safe, right? And if you communicate out too quickly, okay, without making sure that all things are in order, what happens is you create a whole bunch of confusion and chaos and upset and mayhem. And so it's really about making sure that the messaging is consistent, it's clear, and we do try to get it out as soon as possible. There are a lot of channels that things have to go through, a lot of things that people have to see, so that the information that you're getting, I know everyone wants to know about it right away, right? But as soon as things are in hand and under control, information will come out in as timely as fashion as possible. So I don't want you to think that people don't want to communicate, are not communicating, but there is a purpose as to why it goes through the systems the way in which it does.
Okay, Dr. Hicks, thank you. Jessica?
People are going to know anyway. I totally get what you're saying, Dr. Hicks. I really do. And I understand that, but people are going to know anyway. And what it constantly does is exactly what, the members of this group have said, is that it causes bitterness, it causes frustration, and it makes people feel like we're not being looked out for. And I can't tell you how ticked off teachers get when something comes out after contract time and they're seeing it first thing in the morning the next day.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like we do not matter to know anything, and we can't protect our students, and we can't look out for our students and know that they're going to come in triggered or worked up the next day or whatever if we don't know in a timely fashion. And we're going to find out. Social media is as such. We're going to find out. It's a really fast cycle. It's different than it used to be, and maybe we do need to look at the policy for how fast the turnaround is.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. And for me, I hear the lack of confidence, right? So if we have a system in place and people are, learning about it, and then they rely on that system, then you have an increased confidence. But if you don't know if the system, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it's delayed, sometimes you don't hear about it. I think that you lose the confidence. And that's what I'm hearing, that there's no confidence in the current structure. I mean, whether is people are doing, we're assuming that people are doing the best that they can. This is our best policy around it, that everyone is working really hard. I think the conversation that I'm hearing, that I wanted to make sure that we're lifting up, is that there is no or very little confidence from adults in the building and from students, whether or not they're going to be able to feel physically safe in their building. So yeah, thank you for that. Megan, let me go to you, Megan, first, and then Liz.
Kind of adding on to that point, students, at the beginning of the first couple of days at West, we went into a hold, and I remember within 30 seconds, these girls next to me were getting texts on their phone from like friends who were seeing things or hearing things. And then there were more texts, and then they were conflicting stories, and then they were telling everybody, and it was like absolute chaos. And then the email came out, and it was like a completely different story that was not as escalated. So I think keeping in mind that like teens gossip a lot, it's something that happens. And while it's kind of inevitable, I do think the emails are really, really important, because they kind of stop chaos and shut down gossip really quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. And then Liz.
Thanks, Ananda. I have a lot of thoughts and emotions about a lot of things being shared here, and I agree with so much of it. And I also just want to say that I am present oftentimes for these emergencies and have witnessed our school administrators dealing with these in real time. And I just want to just put a word in for them. I totally, as a communications person, completely like empathize and commiserate about the need for like transparent and timely communications. But I also just want to just uplift the fact that like we have very, very caring administrative teams who are, you know, sometimes when these things happen, and speaking to one of our most recent events, I mean, this is not something that's out through you know, numerous hours with the police department, many students, many families throughout the school day. And you know, it's usually not the one thing happening at school that day. And so I just wanted to put out there that I've, you know, routinely witnessed like love and compassion and relationships from our school administrators with our students, and yes, the desire to communicate transparently and in a timely manner right away. And Mike, I mean, yeah, right about what you said about the district coming in and needing to kind of mediate and sometimes, you know, approve communications. But I just wanted to put that out there, that it's by no means a desire to like keep anybody out of the loop for any reason. And I think any communications that would need to happen to keep people safe, that would absolutely happen. Our administrators are 100% wanting to keep students and staff safe. So, and the last thing I would say, Mia, I think it was you who said the lockdown and the lockout are very similar in sounding, and we completely agree. The standard response protocol has been adopted by the I Love You Guys Foundation, and they recently changed the lockout to a secure. And so I think potentially by the next school year, we'll be changing our language as well to that, because I mean, I think a lot of us lock down and lock out, like you said, sound very similar, and it's way too difficult to kind of mix them up. And we do rely on like 911 dispatch and our police department and our security team in our school district to have common language. And so if anybody like screws up that vocabulary, then yeah, something like that happens, and it's super unfortunate. I'm very glad that it wasn't the other way around. But thank you all for just voicing everything you've done, because I think everyone has made great points tonight.
Thanks, Liz. And Gordon?
Thank you, Liz. And also thank you, Anna, Ms. Haas, for talking more so at the point of like, we need this type of communication. I just don't see why this has been changed in the past, considering how it's not just students who are upset and families, it's also your own staff members. You have teachers who are upset. So I think whenever the time you have your own staff members upset about something, that's when you might want to question the way you carry out things. But for my own thing, I was just wondering, so we do like fire drills. I want to say it's like, it's very often, I can't remember that reoccurrence of it, but I want to say it's like, it's at least once a quarter. I know that for sure. It's at least once a quarter. How can we do more fire drills than, you know, code red or lockdown drills? Because I mean, let's face it, right? These buildings are very sturdy brick buildings, right? And while I do understand the importance of like being able to manage what would happen in the event of fire, our current climate has, whereas, you know, safety in terms of gun violence is much more prevalent than fire management. So how come we don't have any, code red drills, lockdown drills. I don't even know, are we supposed to have them? Because I was told us before we were supposed to at least one school year, but I haven't had one honestly since middle school. So.
Thank you, Gordon. And Mia, I think Michael has maybe an answer. So I'm gonna come to him first.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. Gordon, you're right in that it used to be mandated every year. I think because of COVID, they moved away from that. And also one of the reasons they're kind of rare is because one, they're so traumatic because you're putting, unlike, not to say fire is not traumatic or a tornado is not traumatic, but it is, you're specifically talking about a situation where someone's going to kill you. So because of that, we have, as we're prepping, we have to prep a lot of students, staff, families of what's going to happen beforehand. It's not something where, unlike a fire alarm, most students and staff and people can handle it or can adjust within 10, 15 seconds of the alarm, unlike an active shooter drill or a lockdown sort of drill where, you have to almost adopt a mentality of someone's out to kill me. And that's very triggering for a lot of students and staff who might have even, who have experienced gun violence in the past, as well as, tough to come down from, right? Because even after the drill's over, it's not like, all right, let's get back to social studies. It is like, you have to talk about it. It brings up emotions that people previously didn't know or feel. So that's one of the reasons it's kind of, you try not to do it, or they've tried, the powers that be are like, we really do not want to do this every month because it is so traumatic. But I think I get your point in that this is a very real trauma that lives inside, and anxiety that lives in everyone's heads. So, and unfortunately, it also kind of, it's sad. I think it's a testament to how sad it is that we are so drilled to, discuss this. We have young people who grew up with these drills their entire lives, while people my age, the adults in the space, I was a high schooler when Columbine happened. I went to a military school. I went to a school with guns. And we never had to drill for what would happen of an active shooter. So unfortunately, that's one of those things where this is how the trauma affects the brain, is that now it's part of our norm to think about what we do in terms of barricading. I'm sorry, that was not short, but I just wanted to explain, at least that's when we do planning for that sort of stuff. That's why it's different than the other drills.
Yeah, thank you. And then Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that. What you said was, very true and important. You just I understand there's a trauma piece to it, and a lot of things. It's just that, unfortunately, like you said, we do live in a time when it's sad that we have to do these, we have to prepare in some way, So my concern with this, I would just worry that it's at the event, what type of something like that, how prepared would occupants in the building be? So I don't know how we can do that without being so triggering to those who are in the building doing those, so say, drills or anything. But I just want to know, what can we do to prepare ourselves for it? I mean, we will never be totally prepared for it. You know what I mean? But I mean, the same thing with fires, right? We all know, if there was natural fire, things may go a little bit differently than what we actually practice, right? But we still have some knowledge of what should be done, I mean, at least having some type of assembly or presentation or what to do or anything. We don't even do those anymore. Mm-hmm. So, that's just what I was just trying to bring up.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. I'm wondering if how the group feels that Gordon and I will follow up with Dr. Jenkins with a letter, with a short letter on behalf of this group, highlighting some of the things that were shared. Okay, see a lot of thumbs up. That's great. And then we can also follow up with a potential meeting too. I know I sent him a message, but I'm sure he's, caught up on all of this. I wanted to hear a little bit from him. How is he navigating, and what are they thinking in regards to any changes in protocol or whatnot. But I wanted to make sure that this group has a way to weigh in, and also to be a sounding board for whatever is to come, if there's, if and when there is some changes. Any other thoughts on this or communication? And we'll begin to wrap up our time.
Just have a request, Ananda, that everybody please turn on their camera. Please turn on your camera so that the public can see you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. I think the one last thing around communication is to, again, to highlight the Let's Talk, and also beginning the communication between this group and the stakeholder groups. I know Mari had already connected with Maddie to begin having those conversations. I know Julian and Rudy we have been in some conversations as well. Jessica, I'm really sorry we weren't able to connect, but we would love to hear from you all at the next meeting. What are some of the ways that you are already connecting with your stakeholders, and what supports that you all need from us, actually prior to the next meeting? But yes, and so meet with your stakeholder liaison, and think about how do you want to do that. And I will say this, Gordon and I had some ideas, and we presented to you all some of some of those ideas was to meet with a smaller group that represents your stakeholder group. But if that doesn't feel relevant or doesn't feel responsive, that feel free to add on or change and propose something else. Yeah, Mari.
I just wanted to ask if it's anyone's responsibility to respond to the people that have sent messages in through Let's Talk, because even if we consider their concerns to be outside the scope of, like, I know personally as a parent who often gives feedback, there is nothing that bothers me more than just being completely ignored. So I mean, I sort of think that all of them deserve some sort of response, and I just wonder whose responsibility that is.
Yeah, let me bring Liz. I don't know if there's an automatic response or if there's a way. Yeah, Liz, go ahead.
So depending on the topic, yeah, there are certain staff people who get a notification letting them know that there's a response needed in Let's Talk. And kind of the beauty of the system is that, unlike, let's say, unlike an email that you get that you could maybe like just delete or ignore, not that I would ever do that, but I mean, it's all recorded there. So I mean, there's a systems level like recording of the response time, what the response was, the person who emailed can rate their response based on how accurate or expedient they felt that it was. In terms of safety committee ad hoc meetings, I think there's a specific category set to that, and I believe I may be getting those responses, and we really maybe have had one so far, but we are getting emails, Let's Talk emails related to safety for sure. I mean, especially in light of what's happened this week, but we do have specific staff people who are kind of on the hook for making sure that those are responded to. If that helps.
Thank you, Liz. And maybe it would be helpful is because I'm assuming we'll get more this week for the last meeting, for the next meeting, that if there are responses in particular from either Dr. Jenkins or Dr. McGregory that we can bring to this group, and maybe it's just as an update so that folks know, like, this has been our standard response on when people are talking about or asking about XYZ. I think for the question around will elementary, middle school schools be considered in our conversations, I think that is a yes, right? So we can answer that. I think, some of the others, it will be mostly like, thanks for letting us know that folks are concerned about the temperature in the classroom, and folks are concerned about, the different ways we're navigating the end of the school year. So yeah, thank you for that, Mari. With that, I want to share, we will tabling the item 4 around the creation. We'll pick it up again at our next meeting to close work that we have been doing since the last time we met. The meetings are scheduled to be every 2 weeks. So even if you didn't receive the calendar invite yet, but make sure that that's locked in your calendars, and it begins at 5:15 for an hour and a half. With that, I wanted to offer a rounding, closing round for us, and just, a word of how you leaving the space, and then you can call somebody else's name. So I'm definitely leaving the space more hopeful. Mia, I'll pass it to you.
I'm leaving the space more hopeful as well, and more grateful. And also, I actually had a quick question about the meeting times real quick. So, are we still meeting throughout the summer? I just wanted to clarify that.
We are hoping to have at least a few meetings in the summer, because we haven't really got into it, and the bucket of the work. But yes, to the extent that the students are available, at least until July.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. And I'll pass it to Lavinia.
I'm also feeling really grateful to have had this conversation and hear from so many different people and so many different perspectives. And I'm definitely leaving with more information and perspective on what's going on. I'll pass it to Gordon.
I would say I do feel heard in a way. The reason is that there are a lot of people here who understand where us students are coming from. And I believe there's a lot of people here who support what we're trying to bring about here. And I'll pass it on to Joanna.
Yeah, I would also have to agree with Gordon on that one. That would be the word that I would use, just for the same reasoning as well. I'll pass it on to, did Megan go? Okay, Megan.
I'm feeling significantly more calm coming out of this meeting than going into it. And I think also very grateful to be in a community or in a situation where if something like this happens, I can go into a space and have these conversations with educators and some really important people in our community. So I will pass to Cece.
I'm feeling more educated now that I've gotten a lot of different perspectives on the situation. And I'll pass it to Ruben.
Thanks, Cece. I went to middle school and high school here and didn't go through drills and stuff that I learning about now. So I'm honestly feeling a little sad that that's the reality, but I'm also feeling very informed. And so, armed with information is the only thing we can do right now. I will pass it to Dana.
I feel like I'm ready to work and get things moving. You kids deserve everything. You deserve everything. And it is our job as adults and the people that care about you to make sure that this world doesn't make you feel like it has. So I'm ready to work.
I'll jump in. I'm also, along with Dana, my word was ready. But also I would say thankful, really grateful for the students and sharing their experiences and being able to share their experiences and recommendations candidly and authentically. I think that that's important to be able to have a space to do that. And so I really want to say thank you. And I will pass it off to Mari since she's to my left.
I'm feeling much better informed. I feel like you all shared with me knowledge I didn't have, just in terms of procedures. And, we might not all agree on procedures being the way they are, but I'm very pleased to just know how they work. So thank you. And I will pass it to, I don't think Andre's gone yet.
Nope, I haven't. Thank you. I'm also a elementary, middle, and high school graduate of MMSD, and I think I'm a little older than Ruben, did not have to go through all that you guys have to deal with. So I just want to first acknowledge that. The word that popped in my head was exhausted, but in a good way. After you do a really good workout and you got some good work done and you feel a little of the pain, but it's because of a good thing. So I think today was good. I'm exhausted, but in a good way. And I will pass it to Dr. Hicks.
I too am a elementary, middle, and high school graduate of MMSD, and I am ready to work, right? I'm also ready to educate as well as ready to learn, because while all of us don't have all of the information all of the time, I just want to make sure that staff, scholars, and family understand that we are doing everything within our power to ensure safety at all costs. Even my, and I'm just speaking for me, and it's also for a lot of others, to give up my own life for one of these babies or anybody at any moment. I think that the more we learn, the more we collaborate, more that we explore, the greater work we can do in a more collaborative way that addresses the needs of everybody. And so I'm going to pass it on to, I think, did everybody go? Mike Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Hicks. I feel affirmed, not for myself personally, but just knowing that this group is doing some real work. There are some conversations in here, and I'm in a lot of conversations with a lot of different folks that this was a very real conversation, and I'm very grateful, that we just don't have one type of folk in here. We have students from every single feeder pattern. We have staff from, and not just, one type of staff. We have teachers and we have district leadership. We have board members. We have communications. We have community leaders. We have parents. We have grads. This is a very unique group. So I just want to say that I feel affirmed sharing this space with y'all, and grateful because I know this is the sort of group that can make movement and really get some stuff done, so we don't, the babies I was working with at Hegel, don't have to have a Zoom meeting in 10 years wondering why we still haven't discussed or made progress on safety issues. So I believe, Jessica, have you gone yet?
No, I haven't. And affirm is actually one of the words that I was thinking of too. I just love hearing the voices of students and having everybody, listen to each other and collaborate in ways that we can make that communication really much more clear and meet the needs of students and staff and community alike. It's really exciting. Is that it? I think that might be it.
I'm wondering, Liz?
Thanks, Jen. Hope you don't regret asking me to speak, but I just, I don't have a word, but, as we've seen, unfortunately, mass school shootings, come throughout the last 10, 20, however many years, and many iterations of like safety ad hoc committee meetings through the school district, I really am hoping that we are going to like actually have productive conversations. And, you know, I get disheartened by, you know, a lot of time spent, you know, introducing ourselves and things like that. And I really hope that we can build on the conversation that we've had today, and that this, as others have said, is kind of a unique conglomeration of folks, and that we can actually like make progress over the next year, and not just be like another committee that kind of comes and goes and then like dissolves. So no word for that, but that's
Thank you, Liz. Cece, did you go? You go? Okay. I think we got all the students. Thank you everyone for for this round, and for your commitment, and for sharing your stories, sharing places of vulnerability. And then we'll send you the letter that will add you to the letter distribution when we send a letter to Dr. Jenkins. And then looking forward to talking to many of you on how we're holding those stakeholder engagements. So thank you all. Have a good rest of your evening.
Do we have to adjourn?
Oh, yes.
So I move.
Thank you, Ruben. Moved by Ruben, second by Andrea. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Motion carry, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. I'm so glad that people are helping me do my job.
Thank you for your leadership, Ananda and Gordon.
Thank you so much.